To the Bourbon Basement. I'm Steve, and today in the Bourbon Basement, it is March Bourbon Madness. So I got 64 bottles of bourbon up here to represent 64 teams in the March Madness tournament bracket. Um, you all may have tuned in and seen some of my Derby episodes or something where I match a bourbon to a horse, usually with the play on the word with the name or something with the color or something about the farm or the jockey or something. But this is not that way. What we've done is there's 64 bourbons. I went and researched the top Kentucky bourbons, the top 100 Kentucky bourbons. Went online, jumped through many hoops, found many articles that rated bourbons 1 to 100 in the state of Kentucky bourbons. Okay. And that's what I do here on the Bourbon Basement anyway. Um, so I took all those bourbons, I averaged them out, and I got the top 64 bourbons, and then I ranked them with the school. So they're ranked 1 to 64, just like they put them in here. You got 4 1 seeds, 4 2 seeds, and that's how I did it. So this isn't something that I chose because you'll see some of these bottles I think are a little bit better than they've put them, and some of them I think are a little bit worse. But I will give you a little asterisk here. On these lists, they had stuff like Michter's 20, Michter's 25, uh, Eagle, uh, very rare, uh, Double Eagle, very rare, Pappy 23. They had all that stuff on the list. I don't have those bottles, and I couldn't just go buy those bottles. So if the bottle was on the list, I just had to eliminate it and go back to the next one. So I think out of the top 100 list, I didn't have like 10, 8 out of the first 10 bottles. So you'll see my number 1 seeds. Yeah, you'll be thinking, well, why isn't this bourbon on there? Well, it may be because I didn't have the bottle. So I went with the top 64 bottles that I had that they picked. And I put them in 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, all the way to 16 seeds based on the way these articles and these experts rated these bourbons. So if they rated them, 9 5s, down to whatever they rated them for them to be in the top 100. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of fun. I hope this board right here is showing up on your thing because we're just going to go through these. So we're going to start here in the South, right? That's your Florida is your number 1 seed, your fourth number 1 seed, and Florida is represented by Russell's 13, and then your Pine or P-View or Lehigh, whoever wins that playing game, I guess. They're represented by Maker's Mark, just a regular old Maker's Mark. And my pick for that, now when I pick these, I'm not picking basketball teams. I'm not saying Florida's better than, say, Lehigh. What I'm doing is I'm saying Russell's 13 is better than Maker's Mark. And that's how I'm going to pick all these bourbons. So my choice for that one to be out moving on is Florida. So Russell's 13 is moving on. Now I'll be doing the next episode of this will be either late Friday night after the games or early Saturday morning before the games start so we can get our 32 team bracket and just keep on going down, and I'm going to do this all the way to the final four. Now once we get to the final four, we Ryan and I are going to have a blind tasting of the 4 bourbons that make it to the final four. Not the 4 bourbons I pick because I can be wrong. But we're not. I'm not going to taste all 64 of these. I'm going to let the basketball games play out, and then whoever moves forward moves forward. I'm just making picks because I think it's fun. But once we get to the final four of the bracket, we're going to be tasting those. Ryan's going to taste one side of the bracket. I'm going to taste the other. Our 2 champions are going to meet, and we're going to see if we can pick the champion out of the final 4 bourbons. And I think stuff like that's fun. So now we move to the 8 seed Clemson, represented by Bombergers. And then you got Iowa. Oh, Iowa represented by Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Once again, these are picks, not my choices. These are expert picks, ranked the way they ranked them, and then I just bracketized them. All right, so don't get mad at me for what's coming up here, but I think Bombergers edges out the Rare Breed a little. So I picked Bomb to move on, which happens to be Clemson. So we're going right in order right now. The higher seed wins. All right. And now we go down to your 5 seed Vandy, represented by Old Ezra 7. All right. So Old Ezra 7 represents Vandy. McNeese is represented by Old Forester 1920. And that is going to be, I think 1920 is better than the Old Ezra 7. And I picked McNeese to move on. So that's going to be a 12/5 right there. So McNeese is moving on. That means 1920 is moving on in my bracket. Again, however these play out, we'll adjust until we get to the Final Four. All right, so our number 4 seed Nebraska is represented by Bookers, and Troy, our 13 seed, is recommended by the Michter Small Batch. I choose Bookers, so that means Nebraska is advancing here. Again, no upsets in this bracket, really. The 12/5, but there's always a 12/5 upset somewhere, right? All right, number 6, North Carolina. They're going to be represented by the Eagle Rare 10-year Eagle Rare. And VCU, the 11 seed, they're represented by Green River Foolproof. Now, guys, I know this is a video and we can't comment live, but if you all watch this video and you all disagree with one of my picks, go ahead and put it in there. Say, dude, I think you're wrong, because I'm picking Eagle Rare here to move on, which means North Carolina moves on. All right. And if you all thought that the Foolproof Green River was better, stuff like that in the comments. I love to hear stuff like that. Just to see what you all's opinions are on these. Uh, Now some of these bourbons, guys, I haven't tasted for a while, so I'm working strictly on memory of when I've tasted them and what I thought of them then. When I do my shows and stuff, I rank bourbons. So the ones that I had done on the show, I can go back and look at my rankings to know which one I thought was better and stuff like that. But just hearing y'all's views and y'all's opinions of these, that'll help too. And you'll see when we move on to the Midwest that I did not pick which bourbon went with which team. I put them in the categories of 4 1 seeds as far as 1 to 4. Like Florida was the fourth 1 seed, so they were the fourth ranked bourbon that they had. Sorry about that. Got a phone call during my show. Uh, the other thing I was going to say is that, and you'll be able to tell, and you'll see here in a minute. Let's just go on. What are we on? Illinois, our number 3 seeds recommended or represented by Blanton's Gold. And number 14 seed Penn. Penn is represented by the Short Barrel Toasted. I think Blanton's Gold moves on there, so I think Illinois moves on. All right. So Illinois is moving on. That means Blanton Gold is moving on. Now let's go to our 7 and 10 matchup. Our 7 seed St. Mary is represented by Russell Single Barrel. And our 10 seed, it's either Texas A&M is represented by Michter's Toasted. These are both good bourbons, but I think Michter's Toasted edges out Russell Single Barrel. So I got Texas A&M moving on, and Michter's Toasted moving on. And then we'll get down to the end of this bracket. You got our number 2 Houston. They're represented by Angels Envy Cast Strength. And Idaho, the 15 seed, they're represented by regular old Buffalo Trace. And I don't think that anybody will disagree with me as far as Houston and Angels Envy Cast Strength moving on. All right, so that's how the South is, guys. I've never done a Bourbon March Madness bracket. So I hope every one of these picks is right. But we'll move on. We'll see how that does come Saturday morning or Friday night, whenever we do it. How that fans out. All right, now it's the Midwest. Yeah, the Midwest there. All right, so this one here, guys, this is the one that I thought is going to be really interesting for you guys. So we'll start with our 116 matchup. Michigan being represented by Stag, and either Howard or UMBC. They're represented by Bradshaw. And no matter how good of a friend Terry and I are, Bradshaw is never going to beat Stag. So Stag is moving on. So Michigan moves on. All right. So Michigan moves on in that one. And then we go to our 8 and 9 matchup. Georgia, represented by Noah's Mill, and St. Louis, represented by Rich Castry. All right, now this was a close one, and I had never tasted this one. So I went and I read a bunch of the tasting notes about it, read what the experts thought about it. This one I did enjoy very much. This one's definitely a more expensive bottle, but just to me, I didn't think that Hirsch would beat Georgia in on my palate or beat Noah's Mill. So I picked Georgia to move on and Noah's Mill to move on and advance. They're only going to get that one game. You know that because Stag is definitely going to beat either one of these, I think. But anyway, so moving on to our 5-12 matchup, Texas Tech, represented by the Four Roses Single Barrel OESO, which is good, right? But they got a very unfortunate draw on this 12 seed because Akron is represented by the Evan Williams Single Barrel Vintage. This here, guys, for the is it's a good pour, and I think it beats out. I think it beats out. So this is another 12-5 upset. I think Akron takes this. I think Akron takes this game. So Akron takes the game, and the Evan Williams Vintage moves on. Sorry, Four Roses. And that's in both brackets. I had a 12-5 upset, and that doesn't usually happen. Usually there's one 12-5 upset, but in my bourbon bracket, in my palate, two. Okay. So now let's move on to number 4, Alabama, being represented by the Rabbit Hole Velarde. And then number 13, Postra, represented by the Evan Williams Master Blend. Uh, that Rabbit Hole I did when I was in Florida, and it was a really good bourbon, the best Rabbit Hole product I had. That Evan Williams Master Blend is also good. So this one was a close pick for me, but I think the Rabbit Hole Velarde moves on. So Alabama's moving on here. All right, moving right on, guys. The 6 seed Tennessee, represented by Never Say Die Bourbon, and the 11 seed SMU or Miami, Ohio. And you all probably heard about Miami, Ohio, the 31-0 season. They finally got their first loss. Barely made the tournament. They're in a playing game against SMU. Well, I don't know who's going to win between SMU and Miami, Ohio, but they are going to be represented by the Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond. And I think Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond is better than Never Say Die. So I got whoever, Miami, Ohio, or SMU, moving on and winning another game. So whoever's going to win the playing game, and then they're going to win the first round of that bracket at least, because that Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond, that's pretty good bourbon. And it moves on. So that's another big upset right there, 11 over 6, and that was a playing team over 6 seed Tennessee. All right, number 3. Number 3, you got Virginia represented by the Evan Williams 12-year. And you got 14 Michigan State, represented by 4 Roses Smallback Slope. This one wasn't close. Evan Williams 12-year wins that matchup. No problem. I hope you are agreeing, and I hope this is moving. I'm trying to move pretty fast. I knew this was going to be long. There are 64 teams, so 64 bottles of bourbon. Let's go through. So this is the one I was the most disappointed in. Kentucky, number 7 seed Kentucky, represented by Rabbit Hole He Gold. I'm going to call it He Gold. And it happened to get up against Santa Clara, which is Woodford Double Oak, one of my favorite bourbons, and definitely better than that Rabbit Hole He Gold. So I got Santa Clara, or I got Woodford Double Oak. Moving on. So guys, don't let basketball interfere with your picking here. We're not picking the games, the basketball teams. We're picking the bourbons. And I just took Kentucky down in the first round because this is better than this. Sorry, Cats. Sorry, Kentucky fans. You probably also be sorry because Arkansas won and Cal got a SEC championship, all that stuff. All right, our 2 seed in this bracket, Iowa, represented by Michter's 10. And then Tennessee State, represented by Elijah Craig. Just a small batch. This one happens to be PGA, but it's still just a small batch. And this one also wasn't close. I got Iowa and Michter's 10. Moving on. I don't know if you can see it, but boom. So Iowa and Michter's 10 moving on. And since this is one of those bourbons, guys, that I would have had higher up the list. So this ended up being a 2 seed. This, if I was doing my own bracket, my own judging, my own tasting, this might have been a 1 seed. I don't know. It would have been close because there are some good bottles up there. All right. So we're done. We're done with the 2 lower brackets. Now let's go to the upper. All right, guys. So now we're in the West. All right, I got it right. So we're in the West where Arizona was the number 1 seed. Uh, Guys, this one here, Arizona's represent Pappy 15. This is not a Pappy 15. This is the only Van Winkle bottle I got. My brother does have a Pappy 15, and he assures me that if Pappy 15 makes it to the Final Four, that it will be here where we can do a blind tasting. I don't have a Pappy 15 in the Bourbon Basement, so I just got this bottle here representing it. But if they do make it to the Final Four, that'll be tasted blind. He assures me that'll get here. But anyway, Pappy 15 versus Long Island, which is represented by Evan Williams 1783. And I don't think anyone here uh, has an issue, and probably no one would have an issue with even this bottle going over this one. But I know no one would have an issue with Pappy 15 going over that. So Pappy 15 moves on. That means Arizona moves on. So far, no 16 over 1 seed upsets anyway. All right, here we got Villanova, which is Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit. That's the 8 seed. And the 9 seed Utah State going against the E.H. Taylor Small Batch. This one is going to be a minor upset because I do think E.H. Taylor Small Batch beats out that Kentucky Spirit. So E.H. Taylor Small Batch moves on. Uh, so T, no, sorry. So Utah State moves on. Villanova goes home. Now what do we got? All right. We got the 5 seed Wisconsin, represented by the Old Fit 7, against the 12 seed Highwood or High Point, represented by Blackwood. Again, this is not an upset for me. So the Old Fit 7 moves on, and the Blackwood goes home. And we go down to Arkansas, the 4 seed, represented by Weller 107. I know Kentucky fans are hating me right now. I got Kentucky out with the Rabbit Hole product, and I got Arkansas with the Weller 107. I didn't do this. Experts did this, not me. So the Arkansas represented by Weller 107 and 13 Hawaii represented by Larceny Barrel Proof. Again, I don't think this is a blowout. I don't think this is not. but it is in this one, right? I think Arkansas. Oops, sorry about that. I think Arkansas moves on easily in this round because I know Weller 107 did. It moved on easily. All right, let's see what we got now. Uh, BYU are 6th seed, represented by Blue Run, chosen. And then the play-in game, Texas or NC State, represented by the 2XO Gem of Kentucky. I had both of these. It's been a while since I tasted them. I tried to go back and remember kind of my feelings and stuff when it happened. But this to me, this was I'm picking bourbons. And so I've got two playing teams moving in. So either Texas or NC State guys, I think is going to take this upset because I think the 2XO Gem of Kentucky beats out the Chosen. And I know this is highly unlikely. I've got two playing teams winning the first round of well, I don't know. I guess the official first round of the SEC tournament. So I got them moving on. But I think 2XO would win that matchup. All right. So now I got Gonzaga, our number 3. They're represented by Eagle Rare 12 year against our number 14 Kennesaw State, which was the Jim Beam Black. I don't even have to talk about that. I don't think if you've had the Eagle Rare 12 year, you know that it moves on quick and fast. So no big deal there. All righty. And then you move on to our Miami number 7. This was a very low 7 seed. Maker's Mark Cellar Age. Thought that was ranked down there a little low, but anyway, Miami got lucky enough that they got that one. Missouri is the new riff, Red Turkey Wheat. And in my opinion there, I think that Maker's Mark Cellar Age moves on. So Miami moves on in this one. And New Riff goes home. And to our last seed in this one, you got number 2 Yukon, which is represented by Knob Creek 21 against Foreman, which is represented by, oh, sorry, we're on the wrong 2 seed. All right, my 2 seed, Purdue, represented by Knob Creek 21 against Queens, the 15 seed, represented by Thomas More Cabernet Sauvignon. I guess that's how you pronounce that. Anyway, this one wasn't close. Purdue easily moves on because Knob Creek 21 moves on. So Purdue moves on. All right, we're down to our last and final bracket, guys. I hope you've hung out with me this long. I had a lot of work doing this and a lot of fun doing it, but it was a lot of work. If you all haven't noticed, my camera's probably panning around. It's on automatic. I hope it stays with me when we kind of do this one because the bottles are over there on that side of the table, and I'm going to have to move around. But anyway, all right, so I don't get mixed up again. So the number one seed, and the best bourbon that I had in all the professional rankings is represented by Old Forester President's Choice. And then that 16 seed Sienna is represented by Old Granddad 114. Unfortunately, Duke fans, congratulations there. But unfortunately, I think Duke moves on because that old President's Choice there is definitely better than the 114, right? So Duke moves on. So Kentucky fans are still hating me now. All right, so number 2, or our number 8 seed, Ohio State, which is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, represented by Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, faces the number 9 seed, TCU, which is represented by Baker's 13. I don't know how popular Baker's 13 is. It's a hard one for me to find, but when I do find it, I love it every time. And I've got TCU with Baker's 13, moving on over Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. All right. Our number 5 seed, St. John's. This is another old ex-Kentucky coach, represented by Blood Oath 11. And our 12 seed, North Iowa, represented by Johnny Drum. Again, Kentucky fans, sorry about this, but I think Blood Oath 11 better than Johnny Drum. So, moving on. All right, what do we got next? It was our 12-5. We got Kansas, represented by the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. Yeah, we'll move it over there. Kansas represented by that, and our 13 seed. So that Kansas 4 seed, 13 seed Cal Baptist, represented by Maker's Mark Cash Strength. I think the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof is better, and the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof moves on. So that means Kansas moves on. Got them there. All right, now you got Michigan State, number 3, Michigan State, and our number 14, North Dakota State. So number 3, Michigan State is represented by Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, while the number 14, North Dakota State is represented by Bullet 10 Year. And, of course, did I mess one up? Oh, 6 and 11. All right, that's all right. Michigan State, 3, North Dakota State. Of course, Michigan State moves on. Sorry about that. I'll come back and get Louisville here in a minute. All right, so Michigan State moves on. Right there. All right, sorry, guys. I got a little out of order there. I do apologize. So we'll go back and we'll catch our number 6, Louisville, represented by Knob Creek 12 Year, and our number 11, South Florida, represented by Bardstown Bottled and Bond. Both good bourbons, guys. But sorry, Kentucky fans, I got Louisville moving on because I like the Knob Creek 12 Year an awful lot. All right, now let's go to our 7-10 matchup. 7, UCLA is represented by Green River Single Barrel, and our 10 seed, UCF Central Florida. They're represented by Kentucky Senator, the 9 year. And this one's going to be a slight upset for me because I think Kentucky Senator 9 year moves on. So the 9 year moves on. So UCF moves on, and UCLA goes home. Now, number 2, 15 matchup. Y'all see it here. So our number 2 seed, UConn, is represented by Woodford Double Double Oak, and our number 15 seed, Foreman, is represented by Jim Beam Single Barrel. And I think UConn moves on. All right, guys. So there's our brackets. There's the bourbons representing each bracket. I made my picks. We'll see how that turns out. Come late Friday night or Saturday morning, a video should be posted so you all can watch that. Because we're going to get this down to 32. I'll do another video with the 32 teams remaining. If any of mine are wrong, that's fine. It's easily to change, and we'll move it on down there. Now, like I said, we'll let the basketball teams decide the bourbon's fate up until the Final Four. And once we get to the Final Four, whatever 4 bottles they may be, we may end up, if it's the 4 number ones, guys, you got Pappy 15, you got the President's Choice, you got a bunch of good bourbons there at number 1. I couldn't even remember them all. Stag and Russell's 13. I may have put Michter's in there. I don't know which one of those 4 I would have replaced. So you let me know that. Let me know which one of my number 1 seeds you might have replaced with the Michter's 10 or another one of these bottles you thought should have been a 1 seed. Now, that's the fun thing about March Madness. They call it madness for a reason. It ain't just all the games that's being played. It's how they choose the teams to be in the spot that they're at. The experts chose these bourbons. I seeded them in the spots that they chose, and then whatever team they got to, it wasn't my fault, guys. So I would have put Kentucky with the better bourbon for sure. Knob 12 maybe, because that was a whatever. Anyway, that's the show for tonight. I hope you all watch this before the first round, so you all can see how we did. If you don't, it's still fun to watch. Then we'll go to and we'll do the 32. and then we'll get down to Sweet 16 to 8, and can't wait for that Final Four because that's when I actually finally get to start tasting them. Final Four, I don't know. Maybe we'll do live. Who knows? Anyway, uh, guys, just remember to keep following, like, tell your friends, share with others, and don't drink alone. You can always drink with us because we're here to be your drinking buddy. So until next time, we'll see you. Cheers, guys.